And I don't like to think in terms of problems. Problems are really challenges that you need to overcome, but you need to know how. And for that, you need to learn how to use your brain, how it codes, how you can reprogram it. Using the neuroplasticity inside the brain, is your brain can change. But it needs intervention to do so, and you can do that yourself.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. I just wanted to pop on here real quick and say what an incredible interview this was. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that I had with Nikki, and I think that you guys are going to get tremendous value from this. So stick around for this wonderful interview, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know if this served you in any way. We'd love to know. Hey everybody, this is Nate with Elevate for Life. This is a channel where we talk about ways to move into less pain and into more joy in our lives. And today we are extremely fortunate to have Nikki Schnieder joining us, founder of Global NLP. She's a trainer of multiple disciplines, including Neuro Linguistic programming, the Myers-Briggs personality test, MBTI, behavioral and cognitive psychology, positive psychology, nonviolent communication, emotional intelligence, truth detection, and body language reading. And she's trained and worked freelance with Fortune 500 companies and corporations as a trainer, a coach, and a project manager for software and IT projects. She's earned a master's degree in law. And through her business, Global NLP Training, Nikki has gone on to work with celebrities, motivational speakers, Fortune 500 companies, the Pentagon, United Nations, and the list goes on. And her drive to do good in our world shows in what she has accomplished, and also through something that she calls social edupreneurship, where she's able to aid underprivileged children. And I would love to dive into that here in a minute. But first, can you fill in any gaps from the intro, and then also tell us a little something about your personal life?
Well, that was a long list of flattering comments and facts. Actually, I really not a person who is really motivated by resume. Even if when I'm hiring other people, I think the things that I really look for is, what's their emotional intelligence like, and what's their drive, what's their passion, what are their values, and can they produce amazing results? And do they lead a life where people would want to emulate their example? And if they're smart, can they do the job? That's what I kind of look for. And so the relationship that I have with my own resume, I'm like, well, it's a resume, but more importantly, I kind of look at, what kind of experiences do I have? And what did I have to do in order to achieve a sense of mastery in what I do for a living? And what platform did I aspire to build when I started Global NLP Training? And is that platform sort of like moving people from a place where they're stuck to a place where they are in movement? Because my underlying desire is to have created a platform for myself as a trainer, but also the teachers who work for me, as well as my students and clients around the world, to be able to lead a life where they are able to flourish and be in well-being. And then my secret, not so secret aim is that, what can I do in this world to lead a life that matters beyond my own lifetime?
So can you tell us a little bit about social edupreneurship and what you're doing there?
Sure. Interestingly enough, when I look at my life and company relates to it, a lot of the things have been born difficult situations that I was in, where I had to be resilient, and I had to apply NLP on myself. And one thing that I truly believe, that when you're in a very difficult spot, well, first of all, it's temporary. It's going to be over. And then what actions can you do to make sure that it's over sooner, right?
Yeah.
And then also to put the point of control on myself. Because if I start blaming other people who may have been a stimulus or a part of where I'm at, but they're not going to help me solve that. I got to do that myself, right? And out of these moments where things are really difficult, I step into the place where my strengths are. And by the way, I just noticed when I said the word strengths, if anyone is wondering why my English is sometimes a little odd, it's because English is my second language. I actually am born and raised and living in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, though I do work all over the world. But, I think out of that adversity is I want that difficult time to have meaning, and if I use my strengths, which is being curious, but also my strengths are related to creativity. And I think where I start to feel better about certain circumstances that are not good that I'm in, one way out of it is to use my creativity, to use my curiosity, and when I test on what my strengths are, one thing always that comes out of it is a sense of generosity and gratitude for what I do have. Now, in that is my mom is from Indonesia originally. I'm the first generation born and raised in the Netherlands, and I wanted to, in my own adversity, I was like, well, what can I do to sort of, raise my own self-esteem a little bit? I think it got a little bit of a knock, no matter how well educated you are, no matter how many accomplishments you've had in the eyes of other people, when you go off stage for a teacher like me, then also you're just a woman, and you've had some setbacks and you wonder like, well, what do I have to do with it? And so you got to empower yourself during those moments when you feel that. So I was sort of like, I want to make the world a better place. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. It's got to be bigger. And even though I'm weak right now, I'm going to create something bigger anyway. Because I can sit here and blame other people or blame myself, or I can sit here and build and create. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to turn my business into a new direction where the profitable side of my business, of course, would be there, and the shifts that my students are experiencing. I already had worked with, in a sense, for the veteran community in the United States, because I trained teachers of the United States, the therapists of the United States Armed Forces in how to fix post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. But what can I do for the underprivileged children? And how can I somehow fit this all in my busy schedule and not making it about donating per se? So I thought, well, you know what? If I organize a training in Indonesia, where my mother is from, then maybe I can help a foundation. And that turned out to be the Shakatarius Foundation. And I helped them start a catering company because I needed a caterer. And the catering towards the training that happens over there when I'm there actually pays for 2 teachers to full-time teach mentally disabled children that otherwise don't have opportunities over there. And then I give 2 to 3 hour workshops against donation in large corporations. And then I'm willing to fly all over the world to help mentors and teachers of children in underprivileged backgrounds. They're very poor schooling, not good systems for positive education, things like that. Yeah. And what it turned out to be was kind of cool, though I was giving to the world. I got a lot more visibility. And that visibility caused me to actually sort of like fund my actually, the business that pays my salary. So that's really cool. And my students kind of jumped on board. They were excited about the platform and project. And and it's kind of been rolling from there. And so I've been in a very fortunate position that not only do I get to do my job, I can see, several foundations flourish as a result, or as one of the reasons why they are able to help so many children. And scientific evidence shows that anyone who gives, it makes you feel better. In fact, when you feel depressed or sad, the best antidote to that is give something to someone else. That's the easiest way to, in a moment, switch from a negative emotion to a positive emotion. Giving something to someone else, like a stranger on the street, where you ordinarily wouldn't, automatically put you in a positive state. So here you go. When you give to other people, and especially in the time in your life where things are hard, you actually get an influx of positive emotions back. So you can't sit there in a corner having negative thoughts and feelings. No, the only thing that you can do is feel good about it.
And sometimes, it seems like when we're in that place, the lowest of the low, you could say, that's when it's the hardest to push ourselves to do something like that, to put ourselves out there.
It depends on how big your pain impulse is and what are your habits. Some people have habits. When something bad happens to me, I'm going to hide under the covers and I'm going to cry and blame everybody else and be angry.
Yeah.
I think I used to be like that before I went into the world of NLP, which is a toolbox to sort of work with your own brain. It's a code in a way where it goes to the positive rather than the negative, but not a feel-good Band-Aid, right? No, it's really what we're talking about, neuroscience over here, is how can you make an intervention inside your brain. Now, our emotions, our thoughts are based on our emotions, but what we do often with our thoughts is that, let's say we're having a bad meeting with someone, and then we walk out. What do? We start thinking.
Yeah.
And with that thinking, we make we make the story even worse than it actually was. We may even start to imagine things that people didn't actually really say.
Yeah.
And that it probably means this, and it probably means that too, and it was set for this reason, to destroy my whole world and sense of happiness. So what we start doing with our thoughts, we start fanning the flame of our negative emotion. And so NLP is really a toolbox that's sort of like, how do I get out of it? What other strategy and habits do I want to create? How am I going to solve my addictions, my negative thoughts, my phobias, my fears? How can I do that quickly? And how can I do that for somebody else as well? So, that's my job, is to teach other people to do that for themselves, but also do that for others. That's what I'm passionate about. And I think that at that moment in time, especially when you have that one option of hiding underneath the covers and feeling bad for yourself, is that's when you should be going like, I need to be up my A game right now. Because how do I get out of this situation? Yeah. Right now, I should be the opposite of being in bed. I should actually do more than I usually do. Because I am responsible right now, at this moment in time, to find a way to change my thoughts, to change my emotions, and to find a new direction out of this. The problem is, most of us, if not all of us, we don't learn how to do that in school.
No.
Our parents are not teaching it to us. If we're lucky, we have parents whose brains operate in this positive way, that have the right brain strategies. But the majority of us, we don't have those parents. Yeah. And we learn from them, whether we like it or not. And so that's sort of like the magic behind that. And I think that the worst thing, it's okay to lie in bed for a while. If something devastating happens, to process the emotion, to heal, then negative thoughts are useful. But then at some point, you got to stop. And you have to learn how to do that if you don't know how already.
So, Nikki, what's the difference between the traditional psychology versus using NLP?
Yeah, well, there's some overlap. And I think one way to think about it, if I would grant you a wish, let's say, and I would say you're allowed to become a hero, and you can have a red cape. Yes. And the red cape allows you to get rid of pain, physical, mental pain, okay, mental illness, all the installations of your past, and take all that away, right? Or you can have a green cape. And the green cape, what that gives you is the power to change, to flourish, to augment your well-being, to actually find tools and techniques that you can use in yourself as well as others, to increase your positive emotions, to increase your engagement and flow, enhance your personal and professional relationships, leading a life of purpose and meaning, as well as achievement and accomplishment, right? Or you can have that. Now, what would you want to wear, the red cape or the green cape? And, well, I'm a little greedy. I'm like, well, I want both. I want both capes. I want to have a reversible cape. Forget about this choices stuff, right? I want to have more than one option, because I think one of the problems that there is that often we only know one option. Yeah. And if we learn how to have another option, then we wouldn't have to have phobias and not reach our goals and not have a great human potential about ourselves, right? Yeah. Now, the thing is, I think that where traditional psychology comes in is that, first of all, they do everything by testing on something called the DSM. And the DSM has like a whole list of symptoms. Okay. It doesn't mention cures, it just mentions symptoms. There's no real underlying theory to it. It's just a list of symptoms. And now, so that's what psychologists often test for. And so it determines mental illness, and you need a red cape for that. Right? Yeah. Well, great, all these symptoms. So they go delve into the past, and you have to bring your deep, dark issues in, all that stuff. But what they do, and definitely a requirement if you are in full mental ill health, you know, much like if there's something physically wrong with you, yeah, then I would want to send you a person, which is a medical doctor, right? But what psychologists do is they bring you to this like, if you look at things like as a continuum line, okay, mental illness over here, and you have full and complete happiness and well-being on the other end, and then there is a 0 point in the middle. Okay. Now, as psychologists, at 0 point. So you're no longer having these big, massive issues, and you're not completely unhappy, but you're not happy either, right? Yeah. So that's what NLP is about. NLP sort of like wants to work through interventions, through techniques, in teaching you how to use your brain to go from that 0 point to going into well-being. Nice. And removing all of the limitations and the obstacles that may get you there. See, a phobia isn't mental illness. Phobia is something that maybe was installed, but a phobia is not mental illness. Or not knowing how to reach for your goals, that's not mental illness. Yeah. To improve your relationship, to have the courage to follow your dreams, you know, all these things, to shift your career, to improve your relationship, all those things, to go from a negative thinker to being a positive thinker, to become who you are and be bold enough to be authentic, to lead a life true to your own values, to learn skills for verbal and nonverbal communication, all those things, that's not a red cape activity. That's a green cape activity. Yeah, so psychologists are a necessity. Yeah. If you're on that other end of that 0 line. And so often, often when people go for couples therapy, they're already about to divorce anyway. Most psychologists that I know are not very successful in couples therapy. I don't even know why they're even going, but that's another reason. But it doesn't make the relationship healthy and happy.
Yeah.
It just makes the relationship, hopefully, not ill. And if that's not possible, then there's going to be divorce, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that's really about, like, I want you to be happy. How do you do that? How do you get there? And what roadblocks, and I don't like to think in terms of problems. Problems are really challenges that you need to overcome, but you need to know how. And for that, you need to learn how to use your brain, how it codes, how you can reprogram it. Using the neuroplasticity inside the brain, and neuroplasticity inside the brain is your brain can change, but it needs intervention to do so. And you can do that yourself rather than putting all the work on someone else, although it's great to see a coach like yourself, where someone like you, using NLP, you can help people to use their brains differently so that they can overcome their challenges and they can become who they are. You can give them that propulsion point forward to stop being afraid and to go forward and reach your goals and everything that gets in the way. A cool part of NLP is where I won't work with the full red cape schizophrenia. Yeah. I won't do that. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
But there is on this continuum line for someone like me who has had a lot of experience that I can work with some red cape things. And with that I mean, if someone has like a trauma, yeah. I cannot work with the trauma when it's over here in this red cape area. But let's say it's a little bit on that, barely on the side of that red line, of that middle line. Mm-hmm. People have already been around it for a few years, people having good lives. They're not going into a shopping mall and beat people up because they're scared out of nowhere, And so I sort of like, well, that's where I can help and where I can use NLP. And that's where actually psychologists hire me to train them to have a reversible cape of their own. Yeah. So I hope that makes it a little bit simpler to explain. And yeah, NLP is really a toolbox that's sort of like people have been studied around the world to find out how they do things really well. From motivational speaking, to building rapport, to fixing a phobia, to setting a goal, overcoming grief, overcoming mild depression, creating a life that you want, and also raising the children that you want so that they become a better version of you and have, in terms of the software inside their brain, that their brains end up functioning more and more optimally than your own. Yeah. Because you want your children to be an improvement over yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what you should aim for anyway.
Definitely. So I see that a lot of times when we're going through something or we're trying to get to the other side of an issue of our own, it's really easy for us to kind of fall into the trap of playing the victim. And it seems like when we're in that place, it's hard for us to recognize that in ourselves. It's easy for somebody on the outside to recognize it, but when we're in that place, do you have any kind of tips or guidance for really when somebody is stuck, trapped in a place, and they're trying to get to the other side, to be able to look at it objectively so that they're not lost in their problem, where they're able to kind of step back and see it from a different perspective?
Okay, sure I can. Well, first off, if something really big happens that turns you into a victim, your desire should not be the person that you were before that happened. Because then you'll be that same person that this thing could happen to. Right? Mm-hmm. But it's also denying everything that happened. And that's like, you know, that's nonsense. You cannot just pretend that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You cannot forget about it. But what you can do is have your brain approach this differently. So you can either have no feelings about it anymore, which makes you stop thinking about it, or to just say, hey, I'm going to take the lessons learned, and I'm going to take that into the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's not about wanting to go back to where you were, but it's about going, well, who can I become even though this thing happened to me? I can be better.
Yeah. You
know, so even in like something like trauma, interestingly enough, like I mentioned before, a lot of us talk about like post-traumatic stress. It's like a modern thing. I think that a lot of people are very keen to diagnose it. Yeah. It's only a small minority of people that gets that through living life. Even out of soldiers, only a small percentage gets it. An equal amount of soldiers actually experience post-traumatic growth. See, that's what I'm interested in.
Wow.
And post-traumatic growth means that people become better or grow as a result of their negative experience. Now, there's an underlying coding to that.
Interesting.
And that really is what NLP taps into. How can you create growth for yourself even if all these things have happened to you that you didn't like? There are 3 roles when we tell our story.
Okay.
We assign a villain. There is a hero and there is a victim. Now, you're not the villain. Somebody else did this to you. So now you have 2 choices left. You can be a victim or you can be a hero. Now, a hero doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go save everybody else. But a hero also saves themselves. Those are the only options that you have. Focus on the villain, then you're giving the villain all of the attention and work. Focus on the victim side of yourself, and that's what you're going to feed. That's the thoughts and the emotions and the chemistry you're going to create inside your brain. But how can you become a hero? Well, you need to change your perspective. There are 5 perspectives. And in NLP, we call that the perceptual positions. These are incredibly useful. Not to just flip out of a negative state, but prepare for conversations, to consider things in conflict, even to prepare to sell better. And the 5 perceptual positions are this, and you can do this in your mind fairly easily. You know, if anyone after this this video, just sit down with, think of a conflict in your life, not something Indiana Jones big. Start, you can do that later. Okay? But when you think about it, if you imagine traveling in all these perceptual positions with your eyes closed for a moment, and you think of this context in where you have a difficulty or a conflict when relating to another person, and you imagine as real as you can. So if as real as you can means you're looking through your own eyes, you're seeing, hearing, and feeling exactly what you would in that perception. That's kind of like memory, right? And the brain cannot tell the difference between what you're really experiencing and what you're imagining. Ever had a thought process lying in bed before you went to sleep and you were pissed off, hallucinating a conversation with a person that wasn't even there? We've all done that. So the first perceptual position, that's your own perspective. Looking through your own eyes. What do I need? What do I want? You are when you're being a victim. You're in first perceptual position, you're not getting it. You're in the first perceptual position as a victim. I want to say this, I want that, I need this, I feel that, etc. Now, if you float into the second perceptual position, which is the position of the other person. So in conflict, I'm not talking necessarily about a villain right away, but in a conflict, And you're probably not listening from the first perceptual position. This is also where you're scared and angry. And you're clouded. Fight or flight, not seeing straight. When you float your mind into the shoes of the other person and you look through their eyes, then you start to understand, what age is this person? What do they know about the world? How old are they? What do they see, hear, and feel? What are their needs? What are their emotions? What are their thoughts?
Yeah.
You know? And then you see yourself, you're like, not listening, angry. Does this help matters? You can also step out of this position and sort of like step in the third perceptual position, which is being an observer. It's like watching a movie, like a scientist, no emotion. And then you can literally roll a movie of yourself and that other person where you're just watching from this place of non-emotion. And what is it that you learn when you take emotion out? You have to be neutral in terms of your behavior and that other person's behavior. Yeah. What other options could you have chosen? If it wasn't you in that movie, but someone who can handle this situation much better than you do, what would they have done? Like, own it. Yeah, and rather than blaming it on the other person, this conflict, what could you have done different? What were you not? What were you blind to in that moment? Yeah. Then there's the fourth perceptual position, which is sort of like, how does this impact everyone? Family, the company, the neighborhood, everybody else. I mean, is your issue with this person important enough to make the whole group feel bad? Are you serving the group that you claim to love, like your family? And then there's the fifth perceptual position. And that is the source position. It's different for all of us. Some people have a really good relationship with God and their religion. Other people believe in energy and spirituality. Some people just think about the best version of themselves. Now, when you float your mind into that position, then you're in a place of love, acceptance, tolerance. And then you're neutral to you and that other person because God loves everyone equally. I don't know, she or he. She may not like the behavior, but every behavior we're doing because we don't know any better and because in our mind we think we're doing the right thing. Yeah. Right? And so traveling through these positions really help you to sort of, you can allow yourself to step out of an emotion, but it also allows you to learn and to prepare as to how you can have a more collaborative communication, how to see the context in a different way.
So that was profoundly helpful. And as a former student going through Global NLP Training, I was able to go really into depth in that. And I was able to bring that back into my life, and I found profound changes in dealing with my own family, the charged relationships that I had, the charged emotions that I felt when talking with certain people or former experiences. And so that was very helpful. I'm curious if you had to recommend a book to somebody who was looking for this personal growth to find their way through. What's a book that you would recommend?
Well, I'm a big book reader. The book that is of most inspiration to me is A Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
It's not a pop psychology personal development book by any means. Yeah. But it is a hugely inspirational story because it talks about what the commonality was between the people who survived Auschwitz and what was the brain coding of the people that turned into survivors and how was that different from the people that became victims. And I don't mean the gas chambers. I mean more, when they've noticed in Auschwitz, in these horrible circumstances, that the moment someone's brain coding and thoughts switched for whatever reason, they would be gone within 48 hours because of starvation. Yeah. And they were not more starved before then than they were earlier. Yeah. holding on for months, years. But what's that brain coding that makes a difference between the victim and the survivor? And I think that that's, to me, the most inspirational book ever written. And for people in the business world, it's not an NLP book either. And by the way, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning has a lot of correlation with NLP and teaching that way of thinking in terms of real strategies. But I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, yeah.
It's The Happiness Advantage by Sean Ecker. And this is more for the business place. And the book is actually full of science. Okay. And it's the science of creating happy employees. And it turns out there has been an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence collected over the past 10 years or so by the University of Harvard and others that happy employees make successful employees. Where the traditional psychologists, and these are positive psychologists, where the traditional psychologists believe, and still believe, ironically enough, that when you're successful, you become happy. And that's not true. And so this book sort of like explains exactly how you should manage your employees, how you should relate to people at the office to make them feel better, and through that more motivated, more productive. And so this actually makes money. Happiness actually makes a company grow and flourish rather than we're all having a good time and we're going to lose money as a result of it, right? So this is a really cool book as an introduction to do another way of business in a sense.
Okay, excellent. So I guess I would love to tap your brain for another hour, but we have to end this at some point. Out of all this, if you could pass on one piece of guidance, one piece of advice, if this were the last time you were ever going to be able to talk to people, what kind of advice or guidance would you pass on? And then after you're done with that, if you could lay out some of the ways to connect with you, and I'll definitely leave the links for that down below this video.
Boy, all your emotions are temporary. All your experiences are temporary.
Yeah.
The past is over. The future hasn't happened yet, and it's up to you to create. The present is the only thing that's real. What are you doing in the present with your mind? Are you spending it in the past? Or are you dreaming a negative future? And I think the answers are that in the present, it's not about living in the now per se, but what are you doing right now to create and cultivate the strategies inside your brain and your thinking to be a better person next week, next month, next year, to be a better parent, employer, a better person, a better giver, a better lover, a happier person who's living a purpose and meaning and putting something positive out there in a way that you can lead your life where you have a real consideration is what am I leaving behind on this planet? Be my one advice.
Powerful.
Yeah.
So how can we connect with you?
Well, I have a website.
Okay.
Which is at www.globalnlptraining.com. And my team usually picks up all the messages, and anything that needs to go to me personally just kind of ends up magically in my inbox. My team and myself, we provide trainings in Los Angeles, Bali in Indonesia, Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Those are the trainings that are open to the public in any case. And once in a while, we also train in Miami. And so those are our training locations, and that's a way where you connect to us in person.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us.
You're welcome.